In the heart of ancient Ephesus, a stage is set. A trial is about to commence in an ancient Greek theater. A marble chair rests at the center, and a man named Paul sits, anxiety etched on his face. The air is thick with anticipation. Every eye is trained on the center stage where a self-proclaimed apostle Paul is on trial for his validity as an apostle. Surrounding him are the other apostles, their expressions a mix of concern and stern judgment. Among them, one figure stands out. Peter, the apostle who walked with Christ, a man known for his unwavering faith and fiery passion. The tension in the air is palpable as Peter prepares to address Paul. Every breath is held, every heart beats in anticipation. The silence is deafening, a quiet before the storm of words that are about to be unleashed. In the silence that follows, Peter rises, a man ready to defend the truth of his beliefs. Peter's voice echoes through the theater, his words a challenge to Paul, a defense of his role as an apostle. A stern reminder resounds as he begins, "For we apostles are sent to expound the sayings of him who has sent us. We are not commissioned to say anything of our own." This, the cornerstone of his argument, the very essence of apostleship, is laid bare for all to hear. Peter continues, painting a vivid picture of the apostle's role. "Our Lord, when he sent us apostles to preach, enjoined us to teach all nations the things which were committed to us. We cannot therefore speak those things as they were spoken by himself. The duty of an apostle, he asserts, is not to reinterpret, but to transmit the teachings as they were received. He warns of the dangers of straying from this path, cautioning, 'If I should speak anything different from what he who sent me enjoined me, I should be a false apostle, not saying what I am commanded to say, but what seems good to myself.' Such a transgression, he argues, is not only a betrayal of the sender, but also a betrayal of the truth, and then a challenge. 'But if there is anything in them that is not fairly spoken, you have the liberty to confute me, but this can in no wise be done, for he is a prophet and cannot be contrary to himself.' Peter stands in defense of the truth, confident in the righteousness of his words. Finally, Peter addresses Paul directly, his words searing. 'And how did he appear to you when you entertain opinions contrary to his teachings? But if you were seen and taught by him and became his apostle for a single hour, proclaim his utterances, interpret his sayings, and love his apostles.' Peter pauses, his words hanging in the air, a challenge issued, a gauntlet thrown. His final words resonate with a plea for unity and truth. 'But if you say that I am condemned, you bring an accusation against God who revealed the Christ to me. But if indeed you really wish to work in the cause of truth, learn first of all from us what we have learned from him, and, becoming a disciple of the truth, become a fellow worker with us." Paul's response is silence, his head bowed, the weight of Peter's words pressing heavily upon him. A sense of shame and distress wash over him, his usual confidence and eloquence escape him. The truth of his transgressions as laid bare by Peter are a bitter pill to swallow. His self-proclaimed apostleship now questioned, Paul is left in a sea of introspection. Meanwhile, the true apostles, who have been silent observers so far, shift the center of attention to themselves. A murmur of deliberation rises among them. Their faces reflect the gravity of Peter's words, their minds grappling with the implications. Peter's address has not only challenged Paul, but also made them question whether Paul was the ravening wolf in sheep's clothing the Master warned them about. The apostles exchanged glances, their conversation low and weighted. Each apostle's gaze is filled with contemplation, their thoughts echoing in the silence of the ancient Greek theater. Their discussion concludes, each apostle weighed down by the gravity of the situation. James, seated at the head of the stone bench, rises. The theater falls silent, all eyes on him, awaiting the verdict. In a voice clear as a bell, he begins to speak. He acknowledges the gravity of the situation at hand. The question of Paul's claim to being an apostle, never disclosed by Paul until after Paul's letter claims came to their attention recently. James lauds Peter's eloquent points, his fidelity to the teachings of the Messiah, and his devotion to the truth. He then turns his gaze onto Paul, whose eyes remain cast down, a picture of shame. The judgment is passed. James delivers a firm rebuke of Paul for his claim that Sabbath was abolished and that the law of Moses was given by angels who are weak and beggarly, and the law is a tutor that we now as adults need no longer follow. James then loudly declares Paul a false apostle that can be heard only now again through the echo of history. For this trial event was recorded and preserved by Ambrose, Bishop of Milan, In the middle of the 4th century, in his commentary on 1 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 2, a work only translated from Latin into English just over 23 years ago, Ambrose states the apostles also found Paul's teachings on Sabbath and circumcision were false. Paul's reaction to all this is one of guilt and shame, continually bowing his head in silence. As the verdict resonates through the theater, one thing becomes clear. The truth of what Jesus taught, as preached by Peter and all the other true apostles and James, the brother of Jesus, remains unshaken.